And from Lagos, Nigeria, this is Tonight. I am Judith Atibi. The top stories tonight. The federal government insists constitution protects religious freedom in Nigeria as ECOWAS rejects U.S. genocide allegation. The Vice President Kashim Shettima departs Brazil to attend 30th session of United Nations Climate Change Conference, COP30. And at least 46 killed as Typhoon Kalmaegi batters the Philippines with military helicopters crashing during search and rescue efforts. And of course, President Tinubu requests Senate approval for 1.15 trillion naira domestic loan to finance 2025 budget.
And in sports, former England captain David Beckham formally knighted for his contributions to English football and society.
Tonight begins. We'll begin tonight with a story around national security, religious tolerance, and Nigeria's stand. The Foreign Minister Yusuf Tuggar on Tuesday rejected U.S. President Donald Trump's claims that Nigerian government was allowing the persecution and killing of Christians. At a press conference in Berlin, he presented a document outlining Nigeria's constitutional guarantees of religious freedom, emphasizing that the government is bound by law to protect all citizens. Nigeria's top diplomat also warned against efforts to destabilize his country following recent threats by U.S. President Donald Trump to launch a military intervention if the government fails to adequately protect Christians.
Comes out of
this Nigeria's constitutional commitment to religious freedom and rule of law. All the answers are in there. And this is what guides us, and this is what shows that it's impossible for there to be a religious persecution that can be supported in any way, shape, or form by the government of Nigeria at any level, be it federal, be it regional, be it local. It's impossible. And our laws are there.
The ECOWAS has firmly rejected claims that the recent surge of terrorist attacks across West Africa, including Nigeria, constitutes genocide. The regional body released a statement on Tuesday addressing misinformation, and stressing that these violent acts indiscriminately target civilians of all faiths and backgrounds. ECOWAS called on the international community and partners to support member states in combating violent extremism. The bloc warned that false claims of religious genocide only serve to deepen insecurity and undermine social cohesion in the region. ECOWAS continues to emphasize unity and cooperation as essential in tackling terrorism and restoring peace. China has rejected plans by the United States government to initiate military action in Nigeria on account of alleged persecution of Christians. Speaking at a press conference in Beijing on Tuesday, Ma Ning, who is the spokesperson of China's Ministry of Foreign Affairs, expressed Beijing's firm support for the Nigerian government. She added that China strongly opposes any country using religion or human rights as an excuse to threaten other nations with sanctions or military force. In the meantime, the Chief of Defense Staff, Oluyemi Oluyede, says there is no targeted killing of Christians in Nigeria, noting that the country is open to collaboration with other countries on combating terrorism. He spoke amid claims of Christian genocide in Nigeria from certain right-wing U.S. politicians. The CDS assured Nigerians that the military will intensify operations to ensure peace and stability across the country. A senator representing Kaduna Central Senatorial District, Shehu Sani, in the Nigerian National Assembly, and he joins us now along with a global policy analyst, Professor Yemi Fawemi, both of whom will be discussing the implications of the U.S. allegations on Nigeria's reputation. Gentlemen, Honorable Senator, thank you so much for joining us. And Professor, I want to say thank you for coming on, and good evening to both of you. Let me start with you, Honorable Senator, and just talk about, what are the potential diplomatic repercussions for Nigeria's international relations, particularly with the United States and ECOWAS, following President Trump's genocide allegations against Nigeria, especially in light of Nigeria's rejection of these claims by both the Chief of Defense Staff and ECOWAS. Senator Sani.
Well, thank you for having me. I hope you can hear me clearly.
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear, sir. Please continue.
All right. Well, first of all, I come from Kaduna State. And to the knowledge of everyone, Kaduna is divided between the Christian-dominated southern part of the state and the Muslim-dominated northern part of the state. And for all that I know is that both the Muslim side and the Christian side have been facing the problems of terrorism and banditry in the last 10 years or 15 years. Muslims are killed, Christians are killed, they attack churches, they attack mosques, they raise down Muslim villages and raise down Christian villages. So when the claim of genocide against Christians comes, I wonder what becomes of the other side, because I know that even the Christians that are victims knew that even the Muslims are not free from the activities of these bandits and terrorists. And it is not helpful for us as a nation, for any foreign power to think that coming into our country, taking sides, now will solve the problem. And the question I've always asked is that, where has foreign intervention ever solved any problems in this world? It has not done that in Libya, it has not done that in Iraq, it has not done that in Somalia, it hasn't done that in Syria, it hasn't done that in Yemen, it hasn't not done that anywhere. So if there are examples of where it has succeeded, then we can say that it has happened. But in our country today, we knew that we have a problem. And the failure of successive governments to address the issues is also our own problem. If governments cannot address the problems of insecurity, we collectively unite and remove them and bring people who can solve our problem ourselves. But one thing I very know is that no superpower goes to any country that does not have resources, and they go there for resources. Now, Putin is being demonized, is being castigated for doing what? For saying that he has invaded the eastern part of Ukraine in order to protect the ethnic Russians that are in the Donbas area. Why was Hitler a devil? He was a devil because he invaded Poland and Czechoslovakia in the name of protecting ethnic German minorities there. Today we woke up in a day. We have a Nigerian army. We have security apparatus of the state. All that you need to do is to say that we are going to work together, because it is in our own interest that these terrorists be annihilated and be crushed. But you cannot cross on our sovereignty to invade us because you are a superpower. And at the end of the day, you destroy our country and leave us, because that's what they did to Libya. They told the whole world Gaddafi was evil, he was bad, he was a Satan, let's remove him. They removed him and left Libya in ruins. Let's look at it, a country of 230 million people. There is no nation that can take refugees from any parts of this world. What did Trump did in South Africa? In South Africa, he said the government, the black people, are oppressing the whites. And now he opened a visa channel for the whites to be in South Africa. In our own case here, he wants to launch a military attack. And people who are supporting him said, why should you say anything if it is only they are going to crush the bandits and the terrorists? Well, there will always be an imperial invasion will always come with one reason. But the point is that we will all pay the price for it. Any attack launched against Nigeria is likely to turn into an ethno-religious violence in Nigeria, because these terrorists and these bandits don't have a town, don't have a village, don't have a city that this is where they live. They disappear into the civilian population. And then who do you attack? And has all the attacks that have been done by Nigeria, has it been able to solve the problem? It has also not solved the problem. So as far as I'm concerned, US is sophisticated enough. They have intelligence, they have the wherewithal.
Seem to have lost Senator Sani there. In the meantime, let me quickly bring Professor Yemi into this discussion. Now, sir, how is Trump's claim and the subsequent denials by Nigerian officials likely to impact Nigeria's national security policies and the operational focus of its military, particularly regarding counterinsurgency and interfaith violence preventive measures? Professor Fawemi.
Yeah, thanks. Great question. Thanks for having me. I think what's clear is that the claims by the United States President is a significant claim. The proposal by the President of the United States, whatever he says or thinks, is critical. And that's why he's the President of the United States. We call him the #1 citizen for that purpose. Is it everything he says or believes that is true? Maybe not, because he's human. Is it also that everything that he says so that can be validated? Maybe not. But I think one of the questions we need to ask ourselves is that Nigeria has laws and policies that describe the freedom of religion. So this country says in our constitution that you cannot be discriminated on the basis of that. So we have laws. The Nigerian constitution also says that the welfare and security of citizens shall be the purpose of government. We have that in the constitution. I think his own characterization of what has happened as genocide is being violated. But the law in Nigeria, the constitution says the welfare of Nigerians shall be the purpose of government. So the question we need to ask ourselves is that why did government fail that led to the killings of Nigerians? How did government react to the killings of Nigerians? And that's where your question comes to us it's very critical when you talk about policies, counterinsurgency. What are we doing as a nation to reframe what we're doing, to present what is really happening? Everybody in this country knows there was a time in Nigeria where mosques were being bombed, churches were being bombed. There was a time in this country where almost every Christmas and Easter, everybody was afraid because of the likelihood of a bomb going off in a church, for example. Now, we have had that before, and we have been able to change that. What has changed, however, is that there is now more of these attacks that it's getting difficult to define because there are various dimensions to it. So it could be ethnic, people rustling over cows, over grazing lands. It could be communal fight between various communities. It could be religious. Now, that interwovenness does not still mean any Nigerian's life should be taken. And that for me is a bigger question. The argument over whether there is genocide or not looks to me like a secondary conversation. The argument whether it's Christians being killed or Muslims being killed looks to me like a secondary. The primary conversation is Nigerians are being killed. Right. And if a Nigerian is killed, that's a violation of the right of life of that Nigerian. And that is a failure of government, because the government says the security of that guy is the purpose of government. So I think before we start to talk about the US government or President Donald Trump, we need to ask ourselves, why is our government not having the capacity to prevent Nigerians being killed? And unfortunately, if one is killed, what are we doing to ensure we bring the person to book? To date in Nigeria, nobody can point to any time when a prominent Nigeria really got jailed for any act of terrorism in this country.
Right. Let's just pause here in this discussion. We need to go on a short break, but when we return, we're going to be talking about the conflicting narratives between the Trump's administration and Nigerian authorities' denial. After the break, if you're just watching, you're tuned in to Tonight on News Central. Stay with us. welcome back on to tonight. Our guest this evening is the former senator representing Kaduna Central Senatorial District, Senator Shehu Sani. He joins us live from Kaduna. Also joining us is a global policy analyst, Professor Yomi Fawemi, and both have been discussing the implications of the U.S. allegation on Nigeria's reputation. There was something you said, Professor, which I would like to dwell on for a while. And it was far back in, I think it was 2007, 2008, 2009, which were the church attacks between Abuja and Kaduna area metropolis at the time, where people couldn't go into churches, and when they did, bombs were going off very quickly. And so when you see all that incident that happened, repeated cases that happened, and of course the Nigerian army was able to thwart the attacks then, and we stopped hearing, bombs going off in churches. Senator Sani, you are not only a rep but also an indigent of Kaduna. We've had cases of targeted, attacks in southern Kaduna. Is it conflicting narrative between the U.S. claims of genocide and Nigeria? And what does this mean in a coordinated effort to sort of, quell the tensions between the two nations? Can they quell tensions at this time?
Let me start with Nigeria, first of all. You see, I still wonder how a country like ours, with all our resources, and a trained army and trained policemen and trained security agencies, a nation of 230 million people cannot crush terrorists that are no more than 5,000 in our country. And it is so shameful at times to see terrorists operating for over 6 to 8 hours in a place without them being tackled. Recently in Niger State, they attacked the areas of Kontagora and Ibeto and operated freely without any support to crush them. So you see, from our own side, we have and the national problem on our own side, and on the side of the United States, Trump is not passionate about Christians in Nigeria. He's not passionate about Muslims. He's not passionate about Nigeria. What borders on Trump is simply governance is about making money and making businesses. That's why you see he is more emphasizing on his own relationship with the Arab world. He goes there and get business deals of trillions and trillions of dollars. That is what matters to him. And wherever he goes, he look at everything from a business perspective. Recently, he was telling Zelensky that Ukraine has to pay for protecting Ukraine. And he's also telling Democratic Republic of Congo they have to pay with their minerals. So for anybody in Nigeria thinking that he is here for love, for religion, for faith, I think he's just wasting his time. In this country today, the problem we have is a problem we can solve.
Can we solve that problem? I mean, can we solve that problem? Because we've been seeing the attacks both in the Middle Belt as well as, northern Nigeria, Kaduna, Plateau, Benue.
Let me tell you about this now. How many states do we have in Nigeria? We have 36 states and FCT. For all what I know is that in all the claim of this genocide, you can remove the whole southern states out of it. Yes. And all the claim of genocide also, when you remove the Muslim part of the north, so the issue of genocide is reduced to Benue, Plateau, and parts of Taraba, and in fact, southern part of Kaduna. So you can see my fingers. Now, you ask yourself, what has been happening in Zamfara? What has been happening in Katsina? I'm a Muslim, and I prefer now to travel to Benue, to Plateau, to Taraba State, than to go to Zamfara and Katsina State or Sokoto State. Because to me, those places are even safer than the ones in the northwestern part of Nigeria. Terrorists don't discriminate. If I know very well that because my name is Shehu Sani, I can travel everywhere where Boko Haram and ISWAP and ISIS are, I will be traveling. But I know very well that if they catch me if they apprehend me, if I get into their own custody, I will be no different from any other Nigerian. Yes, that is my own perspective on that.
Okay. Very quickly, as we wrap up this discussion, we've seen China play into this. We've also seen the Foreign Affairs Minister with a statement on constitutional protection of freedom of religion out on an international platform. Let me ask you, as a global affairs policy analyst, where do you see this ending? How will the dust settle? What will be the turn of events? Is this a politicization of lives of Nigerians, and this is not really at the core for the interests of those affected? Professor.
Good question. I think what's important for us as a country, and like you rightly said, so like what's like next? I think Nigeria has not done something right, and that is from because of the fact that our foreign policy system, our foreign affairs management system seems not to be well managed at the moment. I mean, there's still no explanation that we do not have an ambassador to the USA. It cannot be explained under any terms. I mean, since the Senate has approved some ambassadors and we refuse to release them for them to go do their job. Now, that itself shows the fact that we're not doing well in terms of our foreign affairs. We can't rely on Abike Dabiri or rely on the minister to drive foreign affairs in all the countries of the world. Maybe we don't have monies to have ambassadors everywhere, but you can't afford not to have ambassadors in countries that are critical to your interests, the US, the UK, the EU, China, Japan, some of your major importers or exporters. I think that for me is one of the most critical things. I think one of the ways we drop the ball, because all that is happening in the US is an indication of lack of effective engagement, lack of effective stakeholder engagement, lack of effective foreign affairs management. I think at this point, Nigeria will need to really go on and hire a professional to represent his interests in the United States. We have known there was a time when we have a Nigerian president that will work with organizations and representations like people like Andrew Young, Good Works International, that were like our face. This country at a point hosted the Global Sullivan Summit. One of the things we decided to do to when we're coming back after democracy came back, we need to have a high-powered, professional-led engagement with the U.S. Names of people like Professor Wole Soyinka. Unfortunately, this recent passport issue becomes another issue. Emeka Anyaku becomes very important between me and you. Chimamanda Adichie. Those global citizens that can knock on doors, that can make a difference. The CEO of the World Trade Organization is a Nigerian. That individual, that Mrs. Okoje-Iweala, is a global citizen. We have Nigerians in the Elders Council of Africa, for example. It's time for the government to put something together to start to negotiate with this government. I do not think, and I do not think that Donald Trump intends to send anybody to come and fight in Nigeria. And even if he thinks so, he does not have the right, the power, and he should not do so, because Nigeria is a sovereign nation. I am concerned China has gotten involved and Nigeria does not unconsciously get into the fight and break back between China and the USA. Yeah. I do not understand the reason why China gave that statement, particularly because it now makes it become polar. Nigeria should not find itself in the crossfire between China and US issues. But Nigeria needs to define a strategy. We need to define an arrowhead. We need to define what we want to do. And I think the least we can quickly do now is to start to talk about the appointment of those ambassadors. We should start to talk about also a strategic communication, what is really happening. If you remember, the first communication that came out when all this happened was our defense to say, oh, they were killing both Christians and Muslims. But the question is that is not a defense. Right. If somebody is claiming there is data that shows this category of people who are being attacked, then it's what a logical and a rational and emotional response you should give. So if somebody says more Christians are being killed, your response cannot be Christians and Muslims are being killed. Show the data. I mean, we're Nigerians. We should have the data that shows what is really happening. And we can have a logical conversation on the one hand, and also have a rational, emotional conversation too.
Yeah, Professor, I wish we could continue. And I wonder what this would mean for China wading into this into this issue, but we do know that there have been documented unregulated and illegal economic activities, particularly with illegal mining. And sometimes we see that to always be those who are non-U.S. allies. Or pretty much is where we draw the curtains on this discussion. I must say thank you to you, Professor Yomi Farawemi, joined us from Canada, who's a global policy analyst. Also joining us earlier was former senator representing Kaduna Central, and that's Senator Shehu Sani. You're watching Tonight. Coming up, court warns Nnamdi Kanu to open defense or forfeits right to do so. Details of this and more after the break. Stay with us. And now to one of our headline stories. The Vice President, Senator Kashim Shettima, on Tuesday departed Abuja for Brazil to represent President Bola Tinubu at the 30th session of the United Nations Climate Change Conference, tagged COP30. The summit, convened by Brazil's President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva in collaboration with other partners, will be held from November 6th to 7th in the city of Belém, capital of the state of Pará in the Brazilian Amazon. Vice President Shettima is billed to join other world leaders, development partners, and business executives at the event themed Climate Action and Implementation, with a strong focus on adaptation, forest biodiversity, and climate justice. Away from that, Justice James Omotosho of the Federal High Court has given the leader of the proscribed indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB, Nnamdi Kanu, until November the 5th to defend the alleged terrorism charges against him or waive his right to do so. Now, the Justice Omotosho, said this after Kanu failed for the fourth day to enter his defense after the prosecution closed its case and the court overruled his no-case submission. Justice Omotosho said should Kanu fail to open his defense on November 5th, he would be deemed to have waived his right to do so. The court had on October the 27th adjourned till November the 4th for Kanu to either file his final written address or open his defense. President Bola Tinubu has written to the Senate seeking approval for a new borrowing program amounting to about 1,150 billion naira to fund the implementation of the 2025 national budget. The request, contained in a letter read by the President of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio, was made in accordance with sections 44(1) and 2 of the Fiscal Responsibility Act. According to the correspondency, the proposed borrowing will be sourced from the domestic debt market to bridge the funding gap in the 2025 fiscal plan. The matter has been referred to the Senate Committee on Local and Foreign Debt for further legislative action and scrutiny. Joining us now is investment banker Dr. Nemeka Obiariri for this discussion. Good evening to you, sir. We're pretty much pressed for time, so we'll try to make our answers as succinct as possible. And let me just start by asking, I mean, with the claim of successful economic policies by this administration, why is borrowing still the order of the day?
Like, as an investment banker, I am not against borrowing. Leverage financing is one of the best financial routes to project and economic development. The essence of removing subsidy was for us to save the over $9 billion that were lost annually subsidizing consumption. Now we'll have expected them to channel those funds into critical areas of the economy. The question we should be asking, on average, we've borrowed over 1 trillion naira every month. What are we investing? What are we financing? Are we financing capital projects that will catalyze productivity, or are we using those funds to continue to finance recurrent expenditure, wastages, and ludicrousy? That's the question we should be asking ourselves. I have said it here many times. If Nigeria wants to reduce poverty in Nigeria and quickly revamp the non-oil sector, we just need to borrow $15 billion. Put $6 million in each of the 2,500 agro parks industrial parks across different centers, across the 8,809 electoral wards in Nigeria. This project, this scheme will create over 20 million jobs within the next 1 year. Create 125,000 agro rangers, fully trained and armed, that will help us to destroy Boko Haram, Boko Haram, unknown gunmen, and the ISWAP. And that will generate $109 to $200 billion into this economy annually from the non-oil sector. This will turn around the situation in the country and help us reduce the over 197 million Nigerians that are under poverty and bring back the over 8.1 million Nigerians in IDP camps back to their homes. But the truth is, we don't know what they are borrowing to finance. They are borrowing to finance, but what part of the budget are they financing? Recurrent expenditure or capital projects? The answer still hangs in the air.
The answer still hangs in the air. I mean, what then will now be the anticipated economic impacts of the requested 1.15 trillion naira domestic loan on Nigeria's fiscal stability and even debt sustainability? What are we looking at in terms of, and when you juxtapose that to the country's existing debt profile?
The truth is, most of the borrowing from the fiscal side have always ended up in private pockets. Remember Olukayode, the EFCC chairman, stated that in 3 years, over 2.9 trillion naira of monies budgeted at the federal government level was stolen through over-invoicing. So the question is, and you look at read the budget report, you will see clearly the 5 states out of 37 that actually borrowed and financed capital projects. Some states like Anambra, Enugu, and the Abia state comes among the, emerge among the top 5 states that invested at least 70% of their funds, both borrowed and the generated revenue on capital projects. Borrowing is not bad in itself. Leverage finance, that's an investment banker, is very, very good. When Nigeria actually needs about $100 billion investment, non-broken, sustained over the next 30 years, $3 trillion to be able to leverage ourselves from the current fourth world status that we are into the second world economy. But unfortunately for us, across the 2 tiers of government, what we see, we are borrowing to finance profligacy, we are borrowing to finance waste, we are borrowing to finance consumption, we are borrowing to finance the overbloated cost of governance. We are not catalyzing productivity through investing in critical sectors of the economy. We are not, and that is the challenge and that is the problem. All
right. I must say thank you for taking out the time to join us, Dr. Nnemeka Obiariri, investment banker, analyst, just giving us a bit of insight as the Nigerian government moves to borrow 1.15 trillion naira local loans. We switch gears now away from that and now to education. In a significant move to boost primary school education in Katsina State, the Nigerian Content Development and Monitoring Board has intervened with critical infrastructure upgrades in Jibia local government area of the state. The move is aimed at creating a more conducive learning environment for pupils. News Central's correspondent Jamil Mabai reports.
The intervention, part of the board's corporate social responsibility initiative, completed the renovation of classroom blocks and the provision of essential facilities in 2 primary schools.
For pilot primary school, we did about 3 different jobs in the school, and we did 2 block classroom, 2 blocks of 4 classrooms with 1 office, and we built a new toilet in the place. A new toilet, 4 new toilets in the place.
To ensure a sustainable and healthy environment, the board also constructed a solar-powered borehole to provide clean water and build new sets of toilets. The intervention extended to Tudun Tukare Primary School in the same community, where a block of 2 classrooms was not only renovated but also fully equipped with furniture. Additionally, 4 existing toilets were refurbished to improve sanitation for both staffs and students.
Yes, in any situation, education will not take place without having good and conducive atmosphere or good environment. So before we are in need of this.
The Education Secretary for Jubia Local Government Area, Dr. Awal, highlighted the significance of an external organization complementing government's efforts.
Yeah, what happened today is something that is very, very important and very expressive because organization different from education, organization that is outside Kaduna State, came to our local government and they execute some projects. They renovate almost 3 blocks, provide chairs, that is furniture for 8 classes, construct 8 toilets, and construct borehole. So we have nothing to say except say thank God Almighty Allah who give them chance to come here and help us.
The board also distributed essential items to the pupils, including sanitary pads, school bags, and shoes, addressing key needs that can often pose as barriers to regular school attendance. In Katsina, for News Central, I am Jamil Mabai.
Financial experts have appealed to stakeholders to provide more assistance to micro, small and medium enterprises, saying that they remain the key drivers of Nigeria's growing economy. They made the appeal at the 2025 MSME Finance and CEO Awards held in Lagos. And News Central's Victor Mbadike was there. Take a look.
The Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises Finance and CEO Awards 2025 brought together business leaders, policymakers and financial experts, all focused on one goal: strengthening Nigeria's small business ecosystem. Speakers at the event noted that despite their significant contribution to employment and the GDP, MSMEs still struggle with access to finance, poor infrastructure, and an unstable policy environment.
MSMEs contribute 46.32% to GDP. They account for 6.2% of exports, representing about 97% of businesses, and they provide 87.9% of employment. Please, let's celebrate the MSMEs. Those statistics are not just from the moon. They are reality of the effort all of us in this room we are making, and how we are impacting one another, and how we are making Africa and Nigeria proud.
What we see is that there are no records. What we see is that there is commingling of immediate cash, and well, because the cash that's coming in has to meet some very immediate needs, the cash doesn't go back to the business. I reckon that many of the people in this room are in the line of where they can mentor such companies and grow them.
They urged both government and private sector players to create sustainable funding models, build digital capacity, and ease access to credit for small businesses.
MSME are really getting support from all over. I mean, banks are actually interested in supporting MSME. Unlike before, they are more coordinated, they are more organized, and we're seeing a lot of traction in that. So they are getting more support.
Attention now shifts to how policy reforms and private sector collaboration can turn ideas into real impact, ensuring that small businesses not only survive but excel in Nigeria's competitive economy. In Lagos, for News Central, Victor Mbadike.
And off to the Philippines, as death toll has continued to rise as Typhoon Kalmaegi has caused widespread destruction in the country. The storm, locally known as Tino, struck the central region with heavy rains and strong winds, submerging homes and forcing tens of thousands to evacuate. Although the typhoon weakened after making landfall, it continued to bring winds of 130 km per hour and gusts of up to 180 km per hour as it moved across the Visayas Island toward northern Palawan and the South China Sea. Tonight returns with business, sports and entertainment, but first, let's go on a break. Stay with us.
This segment is brought to you by MoneyPoint. In business, the Naira remained largely stable in the parallel market on Tuesday, despite U.S. President Donald Trump's invasion threats against Nigeria. Traders in Lagos and Abuja reported little change, with the dollar selling at around 1,440 Naira, the same as Monday's rate. In some parts of Abuja, the Naira even appreciated slightly. Dealers attributed the stability to balanced demand and improved informal FX supply. So we'll return with market figures after this break. Now we look at the stock markets. The all-share index closed at 152,626.9 points, down 0.72%. Its market capitalization stood at 96.97 trillion naira, with a differential drop of 0.72%. Now, the session reflected broad-based losses across sectors, with fingers pointed at the designation of Nigeria by the U.S. as a country of particular concern as a reason for the persistent sell pressure and weak risk appetite among investors. Now, talking about sectoral performance, the banking sector declined 2.05%, driven by losses in Tier 1 names such as UBA and Access Corp. We see that insurance also dropped by 3.76%. Of course, with companies like Cornerstone Insurance and ICO shedding value. Now, oil and gas also shed some weight, 0.78%, pressured by mild sell-off in Seplat and Eterna, following soft sentiment in global energy prices. Consumer goods also in the reds, 1.49%, as profit taken in Nigerian breweries and Dangote Sugar weighed in on the index. Industrial goods also 0.01%, though reflecting stability in cement majors. That's it on business. I am Lekon Onabanjo.
In sports, former England football captain David Beckham on Tuesday received his knighthood to the 3rd of April 2026 in Morocco. No date has been announced for the draw, and no host cities and venues have been given for the draws and, of course, for the tournament. And that's a wrap on Sport Updates. I am Udoka Njoko.
Grammy-winning Nigerian artist Burna Boy has revealed that he converted from Christianity to Islam. The Grammy-winning artist's decision came from a personal search for truth and inner peace, he says. In a candid interview, Burna shared that his spiritual journey led him to embrace Islam after years of questioning and reflection. He opened up at the interview saying, "Religion is a controlled mechanism. I believe we are creations, and if we are creations, there must be a creator. Everyone is coming up with versions that are confusing me," he said. Now, the revelation has sparked some online buzz, some praising his honesty, while others debate his shift in beliefs. I got to be honest, Burna is known to open his mouth and say what he's feeling, and we'll take it. That is the biggest story in entertainment. My name is Sam Dandy.
And that's all the news for tonight. Now, do remember, if you see anything out there on the roads, make sure to send us your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number now showing on your screen. You can always send it to us on social media. We're at News Central TV on every social media platform. You can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 4221, Go TV channel 23. Find us on Star Times channel 274, or also on Avo TV, and you can stream us live on YouTube. Hey, thanks for watching. I am Judith, the TV. Good night.